Welcome to our Delmia podcast, Global Operations on the Go. Today, we continue our series on the transformation journey. Our guest, Eric Green, Vice President at Delmia, and Mike Bradford, Delmia Strategic Business Development, will continue the discussion on the Transformation Journey Note series. They'll discuss Note 7, 5 critical success factors. Here, they'll convey the technological decisions driving transformation. Let's listen in.
Thanks, Therese. Eric, in this podcast on Note 7, we'll focus on the technical strategies and architectural paths that transformation leaders have used to deliver that step change. This is, of course, instead of dealing with the different types of technologies supporting transformation, which was covered in Research Note 1. With that being said, what are the 5 technology critical success factors?
Well, Mike, as we looked at the Research Notes series and we wrapped up with this Research Note 7 on those 5 critical factors, we wanted to bring things together to crystallize for our readers and our customers, the 5 elements that we see that affect transformation in the context of the other research notes. Those 5 that we've outlined start with the first one being managing multiple technologies simultaneously, because we know that investments are made over time. There are different applications and technologies in use at different levels, and the architecture grows organically based on this. The second is knowing where you're at today and looking to transform, defining the to-be operational architecture. And that's extremely important because doing so properly can have some significant benefits. The third is the need to democratize data. With the proliferation of devices and the availability of data and the tools to analyze the data and use it in business contacts, it's important to make sure that the data is structured and organized in a way that you can not only leverage the data but maintain it over time. And as we described in previous research notes, there's different types of data. So having that approach is important. The fourth is selecting and executing the right architectural path. So it's not only about defining your operational architecture, but how are you going to proceed forward to achieve that right architectural path. And then last but not least, and the fifth one we've identified is the deployment of a business-led technology strategy.
Okay, so our listeners will be able to download the series for complete details after the podcast. But could you please highlight and expand on some of the 5 technology critical success factors?
Sure. Let's take 2 of them that I think are somewhat they're all interrelated, but I think there's 2 that are more interrelated and have a closer relationship. The second one I talked about was defining the to-be operational architecture. And that combined with deploying a business-led technology strategy, I think go hand in hand. So if you look at the operational architecture for manufacturers and companies that manage and own or orchestrate supply chains, these manufacturers have to source product, they have to manufacture, assemble product, and distribute and deliver those products to their customers to create that experience that you and I as consumers want. Having an operational architecture in place, well-defined, that enables the ultimate corporate goals that are being set to provide the end result of an experience that you or I or any consumer wants is incredibly important. Now, how do you go about doing that? And this is where the 5th element comes in, deploying a business-led technology strategy. Every company, depending upon their industry, is at a different level of maturity or different level of adoption or on a different path of digitalization. And some are obviously further along than others. But the key to those that are being successful is they're having a business-focused technology strategy. And by assessing what their trends are, what their current issues are they're trying to address, focusing on solving those business problems in the context of a to-be state operational architecture helps them focus on where to invest first and how to take advantage of the new technologies and solutions that are available today that enable them to meet their goals, but also provide that overarching long-term support of their business.
Okay. It sounds like you may have addressed this a little bit, but in talking about that second critical success factor, when defining that end-to-end vision, what should manufacturers who have hundreds of different applications deployed across their plants do to achieve this?
I think they had to assess what those applications do, the criticality of those applications, the risk. Many of those applications, from our experience and walking through factories and talking to CIOs, have applications that are either out of date or legacy applications that are not supported. They may even be on hardware that is at risk. And so triaging, what the current state of those applications are, and then as I highlighted, focusing on the business value and where you can replace those. The one thing to look at in consideration when you're looking at rationalization of a large number of systems, a lot of these systems are point solutions, is looking at how you can address the end-to-end business processes. As we highlighted in a previous research notes, the business process is critical. And the business process ultimately delivers the end result, which is either from a business perspective, delivering goods on time, delivering goods at a specific cost, or ensuring that the proper quality is in place in a manufacturing or a supply chain business process. And to effectively achieve that, a lot of times these applications that are in place today hinder the flexibility of the company. And so making those decisions based upon risk, the lack of flexibility, and where the business value is allows you to rationalize and simplify your architecture to reach that to be operational state.
Okay, so it sounds like, and this kind of really leads in then to my next question, because you talked a little bit
Okay.
about architectural planning. How critical is this architectural planning and transformation?
I think it's fairly critical to at least to have the foundation and the planning done properly up front, because as we highlighted in previous research notes, you don't want to get in a situation where you're making decisions in a reactionary basis. And by doing so, you end up in a worse situation, or a situation where you actually have an architecture that doesn't meet your objectives and creates more rigidity and lack of flexibility in your business. So by planning and doing your architectural planning up front and having that vision in place is important, but knowing full well that based upon the business needs, that you can pivot to focus on those business problems and build out that architecture based upon those business problems. It allows you that flexibility while still maintaining that in-state operational architecture that you're trying to focus on. And that's why architectural planning is important, because while you may have a plan today for what your architecture looks like a year from now or 5 years from now, we know that business changes, and based upon those business environments, you might have to pivot. And the key is knowing what are my trade-offs and how I can make those decisions while still keeping in context of what my future operational architecture looks like.
As a former IT guy myself, I've seen too many IT guys that focus strictly on the architecture. And it's good to hear you talk about architecture in light of business needs. And I agree, that's critical.
Now, I think that's one of the trap that a lot of us as IT professionals can have a tendency to get into. You see the trends around IoT, machine learning, and a lot of these new technology. They're great and they're going to add a lot of value, but there's a life cycle to those technologies and a maturity curve. And unlocking what that business value is part of that maturity curve. And our approach and strategy is to figure out and determine what that business context is. There's little or no value in deploying the technology to prove it out just for the sake to say that you can and you have done it in a pilot, unless there's a way that you can actually use that technology in an industrialized environment that drives quantitative business benefit.
Okay, that's great input, Eric. So how do we at Dassault Systems help customers get the right answers for their organization? And how critical is this to the success of the transformation program?
We at Dassault Systems have both solutions and an engagement model that allows for the joint collaboration with our customers. And it all stems and is based on what we call the value engagement and the value engagement process. Thereby, by looking at what the customer's current situation is, assessing where and how to create value as part of a transformation, and outlining that roadmap and that path we call value path to help the customer achieve their objectives and goals. And as part of that value engagement methodology, it's aligning our solutions on the 3D experience platform to create that business benefit based upon where those business problems are, and using the elements of the 3D experience platform and our portfolio of business processes as roles and applications to support that specific customer's transformation. Because as we all know, every customer's journey and every customer situation is unique, and it's not one size fits all. And the value engagement methodology enables us working with our customers to define that specific roadmap for the individual customer with a focus on the business value and then the supporting solutions that we can provide on the 3D experience platform over time to enable that customer to reach their end state goals.
Okay. Well, that was the last of the questions I had except for one. Finally, is there anything I haven't asked about that you believe is critical to this topic?
Well, I've said this in other research notes. I think what's key is take this in the context of the broader research note series. There are 7 research notes. Each one focuses on a given topic or a set of topics, and the entire series is intended to help our customers understand some of the decisions, some of the criteria, some of the keys for success, some of the risk factors, as well as the considerations to move forward across their transformation journey. So, we have these research notes as well as the supporting podcast, and I would encourage everybody to either read or listen to all of them and take advantage of the comprehensiveness of the research note series and not just focus on one specific example or topic without putting it in the complete context, because I think there's a lot more value in looking at it end to end as opposed to delving into a specific topic.
Well, that's great insight, great input, Eric. Thank you. Thank you for your time and for all the input. I think it's been really valuable to our listeners, and I really appreciate your time.
Well, Mike, thank you. Thank you for the interview. It's been an enjoyable experience, and I hope our customers get value out of the Research Note series and Research Note 7. And I would encourage them to give us their feedback so what we can identify on other topics that our customers want to hear and learn about in the future. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Eric and Mike, for continuing the conversation on the transformation journey. Our listeners can access the Transformation Journey Note 7 by clicking on the link under the podcast to download. I'm Therese Snow, and thank you for listening to Global Operations on the Go.